Do it.
Celtics Sixers post-game show, and it's almost like game one. It's an angry win, if you're following the Celtics, because this was a really frustrating game to watch for about 1,000 different reasons. Look, we survived the Scott Foster game. I guess that's all.
Yeah.
But this was a debacle from the get-go, and it was just annoying, and the fouls and Tatum and just the flow. But Celtics ultimately, gritted it out and pulled out the win, and now they're up 3-0, and Philly's cooked at this point. Jimmy could put on his hard hat for Game 4, I think. Bobby Manning, Joe Sway, start with you. Your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, you saw the Celtics struggle in areas that we've seen them struggle all year long, specifically offensive rebounds. I'm going crazy watching this game, guys. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is going to put an end to all the offensive rebounding. I mean, Brad can't say enough about it in the second half. And then Philly kept going on. 20 second chance points off of 20 rebounds. I'll tell you this much, guys. If they got maybe 2 or 3 of those three-pointers to fall because they took, about 40 of them, this game would have been a whole lot scarier than it actually was. And, of course, shout out to KEMBA Walker for, again, showing us how in the fourth quarter he can just flip that switch.
Yeah, and again, look at it. I mean, they shot 29.8% from the field for the whole game. And you know what? It wasn't like it dropped to that level. They basically shot 30% for every quarter of this game.
Every quarter was ugly. Terrible.
They were 30 after 1, 30 after 2, 30 after 3. They basically, they did this all game long. They shot this poorly. And the free throw attempts, again, they weren't as lopsided at the half as we thought it, but then it got really ridiculous. Embiid basically got a foul every single time, except for that at the very end when he flops, goes down. They go the other way. Tatum gets a clear path foul. That's the ball game. But they got a ton of those. Tice's sixth foul, elbowed in the jaw, bowled into, stands straight up like this, tweet.
Screaming after that play.
Like this, nothing. I mean, and again, big guys like that get that call a lot, but this was a classic, you hate to say this about the NBA, but this was a classic down 2-0 refereeing job that we saw here in this game.
I wonder.
You can say that.
It would be interesting to think what would have happened if Tice did stay in the game late, though, because Enes Kanter, my guy, as you say, John, comes in, stands his ground on 2 straight possessions. He gets hit with kind of a bogus foul.
One bad one, but then one he got, they got away with. That's the one that went the other way.
Right.
Yep. So he stands his ground on that play, and that's what made it happen for Jason Tatum on those 2 phenomenal plays to close the game. Makes me think, Brad was talking pregame about the Kemba play in Game 2 that sent Brown for the 360 dunk, and then the other play where Marcus Smart blocked Harris inside. You had 2 of those plays late here. The Smart steal, sending, I think it was Brown out in transition again, and then you had the Tatum play that sent them out on the transition run that won this game. And they were down a possession late. Embiid was getting all the calls, as you said, and they completely swiped this game away on defense. I wasn't confident Philly was going to be able to close this on the offensive end, given all the things you said about their offense tonight. But the Celtics needed to go on and make those plays, and what a brilliant way to take the game. This was an exciting one to me in that last few minutes.
It was, because it was tense.
You didn't know
which way, and you would have been really upset if they lose it, because it's like, how do you lose this game, And there was a million different ways, but you're right. Smart, Bobby, played a very smart game, smart game. He did a lot.
I thought he was the most important guy out there tonight.
He was. Without him, I don't know what happens. There was a million times, just even one drive late going up against Embiid, drawing that foul, the tricky and one. His 3-point shot's still off, but I mean, he did, and obviously the steal at the end, he made a ton of plays where you needed somebody to do something, because Tatum was off all game. And going back to the foul stuff, I mean, he was out of the game all game. He had the 3 fouls in the first, and he just never got into rhythm. And Brad did the thing he said he doesn't do. He took him out the whole second quarter. He actually did a TNT interview where he said, I'm going to let my guys play through it and figure it out. And then Tatum sat the whole quarter. And I don't think he ever got back into it. Even when he got back in the third quarter, he had one where he was kind of, it was in transition and he looked really tentative. He was afraid to pick up a charge. And then he almost kind of could have gotten called for a 5th foul on another offensive possession. Another time down the court, same, it was a 2-on-1, and he didn't want to go up because he was afraid that the Philly defender had position. He gave it to Jalen under the basket, and he was in no position to score.
I remember that. That was, yeah, he should have taken that.
And he should have taken it, but it was in his head, and all he wanted was, just give me the ball on the perimeter and let me do my step back thing. But he lost all aggression on the offensive and defense sides of the ball. He wasn't doubling with the same kind of ferocity and trying to swipe at and being active. He really played a passive game because the fouls were in his head, I think.
Yeah, but I think Brad Stevens has always been the guy to sort of let his guys play through foul trouble. And
but he didn't tonight.
It's so important, though.
You know why he didn't?
But he didn't. He sat in
the second quarter. But what about the third quarter? He picked up his fourth foul.
He did.
You had Embiid on the bench with 4, and Brad's like, hey, wait a minute. I got to take advantage of this. Yeah, okay, Tatum has 4 fouls, but I can't let these guys grab a lead right before the fourth quarter. And I thought that was really important. Those last ones, he stuck with Tatum.
It's twofold because you get to 3 in the first half. There's no excuse to let a guy get to 4 in the first half of a game. So he had no choice there. But I also think he trusted the bench because what they did in game 2. And it was mixed results tonight. I thought in the first half, the bench was shaky. They kind of gave it up after the starters built that lead in the first quarter when Tatum got into some of that foul trouble. And then the second half, Grant comes out, drills another 3. As we talked about Cantor's late contributions, I thought Romeo, again, we thought a week ago he was going to be a non-factor with the injury. And in fact, when Hayward went down, I was like, now you wish you would have had Romeo for this situation as the 4th wing. And he looks fine. He comes out there. He's fronting guys individually when he gets caught in isolation. It's like Philly thinks he stinks defensively, and they try to isolate him out there. And he does a phenomenal job on whether
that's surprising to me. Yeah, Bobby, I'm glad you pointed that out. That's surprising to me. He's able to stay in front of everybody. And they haven't figured that out yet. And it is so bizarre. It's like the only thing, I mean, his offensive game is not evolved enough yet at the NBA level where you're worried that he's going to do anything other than knock down an
He's the king of zeros, right? He puts up the 0, 0, 0.
Right. I mean, he had one buy, he had a dunk, but he's defensively, he's outstanding, and everybody should know that. And I'm surprised that does Philly not even watch the games? I mean,
it's the audacity of the NBA players. They probably don't even know who he is, and they see him out there. They're like, this guy's only out there because Tatum's in foul trouble.
Like, we're going to take it right to the scrub. Hey, mismatch, give me the ball. You're screaming for it in pickup. Like,
he's definitely not in a scouting report. Like, they're not really prepared for Romeo Langford to check in. But you know what? Though,
you see the rook, and your eyes are like this.
I've always thought
HORFORD,
he reminds me so much of a young Avery Bradley, 19-year-old Avery Bradley. Because remember when he first came, he didn't have that shooting touch. He was all exclusively backdoor cuts and layups. That was all he could do. Remember? And then defensively, he stole Ray Allen's job. Like, that's the reason why he got the starting job, because of his defense. Yeah, I'm not saying Romeo is that level, but Yeah,
Avery was so terrified to, like, when they made him run the point. As soon as he crossed half court, he'd be like, "Give it."
He was looking around. Yeah, he was.
He couldn't wait to get the ball in his hands and go run somewhere else. And Romeo again is almost the same. He's like, he's got it. He's like, somebody else take it. I'm going to go over here now.
And then he just runs the opposite way, right?
I'm just going to go over here. Yeah. No, it's true. You know what, though? The Tatum foul trouble kept us from seeing that Tatum in the bench second unit because it took Brad out of his rotations. He had to bring those guys in a little bit earlier. So you had Romeo and Cantor in at the halfway point of the first quarter. And it's too bad you didn't get to see if that experiment worked again because Tatum was out of his game. He was tentative when he got back in there, and the rotations were all messed up as a result of it. So this was kind of like a mishmash sort of game for Brad, trying to figure out how he was going to play it.
Yeah, and that's part of why the game went so messy. I thought a lot of times you saw Brown on the ball, especially at the beginning of the fourth quarter. He had the 2 turnovers, and then he ended up getting back on a shot there. It was a mix-and-match game for Brown. It ended well with the transition make there, but he got put in more responsibility on the ball, I thought, than you would ever imagine from him because of the sort of mixing and matching of the lineups that we saw tonight. It was interesting to me. I look at the defense. You never thought Philly was going to kill you with the threes, but one thing that they did start to get from Boston, this is something the Boston defense can give up sometimes, are the dribble penetration. I thought Shake Milton killed them there tonight. That's maybe some of that hesitation in the help game that Tatum, as you alluded to, was having tonight. Defensively, I didn't think the Celtics turned it up until late in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, they were close enough, and Philly didn't hit enough shots that they could win this game off 2 possessions. But that's still my one concern with the Celtics defense, and we've talked about this for years. The dribble penetration can kill them. You got to look at Shake Milton's stat line. He ended up having a pretty good night, I think. Yeah,
I mean, Milton had a pretty good game. He was 17 points, 6 of 18, though. I mean, it really was. I mean, nobody could have. I mean, when you shoot 28% from the field, nobody can have a good night. Even Embiid. Even Embiid was 7 of 20. He was 14 of 16 from the line, and that's. Think about how bad that is. He started out. He didn't miss in the early going, so he went cold. They all. I mean, nobody did anything for these guys. It was a clunky game. So when you get, it was such an ugly game that when Richardson or Milton would do something, they'd be like, "Whoa, these guys, like they're good like that." And it's like, yeah, I know, but they're shooting 30%. All of them shot 30%.
But they still hung around though. And they hung around by doing things that Celtics have struggled with before in the past. And I can't help but think about the Raptors and think about how different this game would have been. You've given up those kind of possessions like Bobby was talking about, or whether you're giving up all those offensive rebounds. And can you imagine giving up 20 offensive rebounds against the Raptors? Forget it. You're getting blown out. So,
that's the big one.
I look at it.
Yeah, that's the big one out of this one. I didn't think Tice played a great game. You gave him a little bit more credit than I would, John. Probably maybe a few of those would have been fouls on Embiid if they're calling this like a regular season game. But there's going to be that bumping and grinding inside. And Tice, a lot of the time, was just backing off and bending over and trying to show some pain to get himself some pity from the officials. When he's got to stand in stronger there, he's got to have a better night on the boards. They got dominated inside by Tobias Harris in particular to a degree that you can't.
Well, I'm not putting that on Tice, though. I mean, look, at the end of the day,
that's on everybody.
Yeah, at the end of the day, box a guy out. You're getting killed on the boards. You got to pay more attention to it. It's just too much standing around when the shot goes up, and they got killed with it. So that's all. That's a team failure. Tice it's not fair to blame him for anything that Embiid does to him. He's a sacrificial lamb out there. He's put out there to get his ass kicked and just do the best he can, no matter what you get. It's true. Whatever you get out of him is fine because it's a freaking mismatch. He's 6'8", Embiid's 7'2". He's a beast. So there's nothing you can do there. You're expecting if Embiid goes 7 for 20 on you, and a bunch of fouls as well. Like that's fine. That's. I don't know what Tice expected to do. The rebounding though is a total team failure. Harris had what 8 or 9 offensive, 7 offensive rebounds himself. 8 offensive rebounds, 15 freaking rebounds.
Excuse me, 8. Yeah, you're right.
Eight offensive, 7 defensive. I mean, what are you doing here? Like you put a body on a guy.
Yeah, this calls into question how the Celtics can survive if Tatum has a night like this where he runs into foul trouble. Because we highlight already 3 areas where they can.
Well, there's a Hayward issue.
Yeah, you're missing 2 key rotation guys. At that point.
It's if you have Hayward coming in, you can live with Tatum having either an off night, someone getting into foul trouble. But you're right, you realize how thin you are there, where you're like, shit, who's going to score? Because Tatum was both either not in the game or just. Never got. This is the type of
It's the defense too. Yeah, it's the defense too because he helps, as we saw in the last play there, where he made the game-winning block and rebounding too. He's a great rebounder. He had 13 rebounds in game 1. So like every piece of the game, you start to see why Tatum's one of the best plus-minus guys, on-off guys in the league because he fills all of these gaps for Boston, even offensively. How many times does he run the pick and roll at this point? And luckily, we haven't talked about Kemba Walker, but he picked them up big time in that end, where he was able to get on the ball and make things happen when Tatum was out of the game.
Oh, man. Best game from him in the bubble, for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah. Honestly, best game we've seen in a long time from him.
Yeah.
Couple questionable, didn't finish as strong, but he looked like, and again, I just feel like I don't know what it is. He's still a tad. I think he could have put up 30 something. I mean, I think he could have really gone off today. He was moving great, and he gave them exactly what they needed. And he missed a couple. He had a lot of good looks. I think if he shot it a tad better, he could have had he could have had a phenomenal game.
One of those explosive nights, right?
Yeah, he could have.
Yeah, Tatum though. Tatum was going off. He was cooking in the third quarter, but the way those two play off of each other, Yeah, I agree with you, John, for sure. He definitely looked like January or before the injury, Kemba Walker.
And aggressive because he had to. So he took 20 shots. We haven't seen him take 20 shots in a long time, So
we talked about this, Joe Sway, the finishing. That's something we haven't seen at all in the bubble. I pointed out the stats, about 60% of his shots are coming from 3. he was going to that bucket time and time again in the third quarter. And I love that make where he put his body in the Embiid and got the and one in transition. Tags a key foul on Embiid. You get 3 points out of that instead of 2, obviously. His finishing in this one was almost Isaiah-esque. Like the way he was using his body inside, and we haven't seen that from him at all.
He did. He was shielding. He was keeping guys on his hip. He was doing. It was really good stuff from Kemba. And you're right. You haven't seen a lot of that.
Yeah, because these are tune-up games for Kemba now. Let's face it. He's got to be at tip-top shape for Toronto, and these games, especially Game 4, definitely a tune-up game. So
that's the best part about it. Thank you very much, Philly, for extending the exhibition season. The Celtics still haven't played a meaningful game in the bubble.
We got a couple more seeding games out of the series. It's perfect. It's a win-win.
So
can't wait for Sunday.
The Raptors and Celtics are probably gonna be playing while other teams are playing first round series. And this is so great for the Celtics now because I think the worst thing you could ever have is a massive layoff, especially in this environment where guys are trying to stay in a rhythm. And both these teams are hurtling towards sweeps. There's no way Toronto's not going to sweep Brooklyn after the Joe Harris ejection from the bubble. And, maybe Philly steals a game here, but I don't have any faith in their ability to finish. So I think both these series are headed towards sweeps.
This thing is done. This is the best they have.
It's over.
That's the best effort they have. And they can't duplicate that.
They had Scott Foster. They had the home crowd. They had everything,
the home crowd.
Yeah. Oh, Kristaps and Mook getting into it, by the way.
Oh man,
just a little. All right, let's quickly talk about our man Al again. What in the world, guys? How insignificant and inconsequential can he be? He helped on the boards. So he grabbed 10 boards.
10 boards.
I'm glad you bring him up.
But I'm baffled by it. I understand fit, but in 3 games we haven't seen anything that resembles even a mid-level, of what we were used to seeing with Horford when he was a Celtic. He just, I don't know if physically you see that he's not the same guy. It's obvious when he's on the court and he's trying to check Jalen. That's never a good. Jalen started the game bucket.
Right.
And again, but he doesn't do anything. 5 field goal attempts in 38 minutes. And again, I don't know whether it's a game plan specific thing, whether he's just not confident in his shot, whether he's what do you guys, maybe it's constantly being fed to Embiid and he's just not, able to do anything when that's kind of the game plan.
That's the feeling
you have other guys out there you have Milton, and you have, all these other guys jacking shots here.
Right.
Harris had 19 field goal attempts, Richardson 17, Milton 18, Al Horford 5. Out of the start, Burks had 10 off the bench. Al Horford has 5 shot attempts, 3. He made 1 basket. What's going on, Josue?
To me, it's a little bit of both. A lot of it has to do with the game planning. It just seems like Philly was dead set on getting themselves into the game from behind the arc and staying in it that way. You can tell. Look how many 3-pointers they attempt. And it wasn't like they were shooting it at a high rate, but they were constantly shooting it because it seemed like that's what Brett Brown wanted. Even how Al Horford sort of got okay, let me get into this again. If you guys want to shoot threes, maybe if I drain 1 or 2, you guys are, throw the ball my way, throw me a bone here. But there were a couple of plays where you could see the play was set for him, and he just couldn't get himself situated down low. And I saw one play in particular where he tried, and Joel Embiid came over against, all right, I gave you a shot, now it's my turn. We're going to do things my way again. And I saw that a few times throughout the course of the night. But, it wasn't like the sense of energy, the sense of urgency wasn't there for the team. It didn't seem like everyone was dead on, getting him the ball, only in a few instances.
No.
I'm going to stand with, I think it was Dan there in the comments.
Yeah.
I got to back up Horford. Horford's days of impacting NBA games are not over because I think Philly is going to trade him this summer or this winter, whatever it's going to be. Someone's going to take him. I believe someone.
Maybe in the final year of his deal, when he's got 2 years left with an option, no way.
No, so I believe.
As good as his demonstration is, Bobby, I don't think he's helping himself out, man.
No, man.
I truly believe he has good basketball left to play in the right situation. And I think his play is a product of this circumstance.
Good basketball at a veteran minimum or a $10 million exception or something. Not at
if they bring back the amnesty, right? No, but
he's a buyout candidate, my man.
Yeah,
Nah, too
sorry.
soon.
Oh, geez,
too soon.
that is going to
He's
be a
not, he's
monster
not Joe
Not
battle.
Kim
yet.
Noah yet, man.
Not
He's not
yet.
Joe Kim yet.
Yeah.
Long.
If they don't bring out the amnesty, that's going to be a nasty bio. But I look at what they have him doing.
Not bringing that back.
He gets maybe 1-2 post ups a game, which is where he worked his magic in the Celtics uniform. He doesn't ever get a long stretch playing at the center spot with Embiid off the floor because they need Embiid on the floor at all times. So they're going to lose control of the game. So, like, what do you do with him offensively? Because he's just standing out there as a force.
But you have an 8-minute stretch. You got an 8-minute stretch where Embiid goes to the bench after he picks up that other foul. Still nothing.
No, I thought they got a little bit of a thing going there. They had the 4 shooters out there on the floor, which is it's shooters with the Sixers because they don't have any shooters, so that hurts him offensively. And he had the huge foul. I think it was on Tatum out at the 3-point line there late in the game. It was Jaylen Brown. He what's he doing out there? I mean, that was never ever Horford's role in Boston to be guarding a Jaylen Brown type player on the perimeter. But when you're sided with Embiid, you got to pick one of those wing guys up. And has he lost some physically? Sure. But this is all on Philly. They signed him to make him a premier piece of this team in a role that he wasn't fit to fill.
Yeah.
Yep. See, I feel like they haven't given him that shot, though. Like, if you look at other examples, guys who have cashed in on big deals, you see they're one or two of the top options on offense. And obviously, we knew going into this that wasn't going to be the case, but I thought we'd see a little bit more than this. I mean, I thought we'd see him get more touches than we're seeing from Tobias Harris, but that clearly isn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where he gets the touches on offense. Do you face him up? Embiid's always going to be in the lane. You can't post him up because Embiid's always posting up. And he's not going to be a corner 3-point shooter like they had him set up as in crunch time. That's never been his shot. So there's no room for him on the offense. You could make him an interchangeable guy with Embiid, which I think they should look at doing. Only have one of those guys on the floor at a time. But, Embiid's Brett Brown's looking for his best 5 right now, and he doesn't. It seems like he only has 3 at his disposal at most.
Does Brett Brown make it to Game 4?
Yeah, they gotta throw him a party, goodbye party, good luck party, and all that. Yeah, he'll be there.
For real though, I mean, I think
You guys want to fix the process right now? I'm down.
Whether or not he's fully to blame for a team, this misfit team that doesn't quite. It wasn't assembled correctly. At the end of the day, he's going to be the face of failure, and I don't think he survives. Do you think it's immediate? Is this going to be like a fired before you leave the bubble sort of scenario, or is it go into some sort of evaluation at the end of the year? Do you think his fate's already been sealed? I don't know. I mean, everyone's talking about massive moves behind this team, but this is there's a lot going on with Philly heading into. Again, we're writing them off at this point, but there's a lot going to change. You're talking about trade Simmons or trade Simmons or Embiid. You're going to decide there. What do you do with Horford? What do you do with a lot of these guys? What do you do with Brown?
Screwed. You're so screwed when
they got $150 million committed next year in salary.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think because of that, you're in a tough spot because first of all, you have to make that decision. Who are you going to trade here? One of these guys have to go just to create some sort of flexibility there. Yeah. And then you have to find a coach that's on board with these plans. So I just think it's way too early. And I know it's crazy saying that because we're 3 months away from the next season or whenever the new date's going to be. So they don't have a whole lot of time, but there's a lot of candidates out there. So, you think all the guys that struck out and trying to get that Knicks job, I mean, there are guys out there that could come in and coach. I think one way or another he's out. I just don't think it's that simple. It's going to take a little bit of time.
You got Philly guys in our mentions right here, and they're not mad and they're not sour. They want this is Big Moose here. This is emblematic of a lot of what I'm seeing in the chat right now. Kill us. Please put us out of our misery. I want change. I want Brown out. I want to blow this up, and I'm getting a lot of that right now. Kind of seeing it in here, like please, make this end. So
this all started with Markelle Fultz, and it's been a downhill slide ever since. The amount of guys that have been shuffling in and out there. Your whole Twitter burner account situation at the GM spot. And then finally, this tenure, their new GM, Elton Brand, has been an unmitigated disaster. The fans hate him. And that falls on Brett Brown, which is too bad because he seems like a decent coach. He's been there since 2013 and all that. They'll get better options at both those spots, I'd imagine. But I was looking at the salary chart. They're paying Tobias Harris as much as $41 million through 2024.
It's 150 next year, Bobby. They're 130 this year. It goes up to 150 next year.
Yeah, and
It's messed
the
up.
whole league knows they're trying to sell off, so they'll get killed in negotiations. It's going to be
Pennies
another
on the
bad
dollar.
offseason. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Exactly. That's why you have to make that decision. And neither one of those guys are going to ask for a trade. Do you see Simmons ask for a trade or Embiid asking for a trade? I don't see it. So it's up to them. They have to decide which one they're dealing.
Yeah. And that's a tough decision. It really is, because I think the fan base loves Embiid. I think Embiid has done what he needs to prove that he's a franchise player there. But Simmons has more upside at this point. He's been a healthier player, and I just think he's a better player at this point too. Like we
debated this last time. I kind of lean on the Simmons thing because I think it's easier, but I don't know. I mean, Embiid's clearly the more dominant talent. It's pretty close. It's just
I'm leaning towards Embiid.
What kind of team do you want to be? That's ultimately what you're trying to determine there. It's what's your identity going to be, and which one's going to fit it. It's almost a matter of it's less about the guy and more about right now, you're committed to a bunch of pieces. You might have to look at your existing roster as it's probably going to be and say, which of these two guys fits with these pieces? And then I'll start to rebuild from there as you go. Because you can't clear the deck, say it's going to be Embiid, and then build the team around him. At the end of the day, you have what you have. You're not going to be able to do unless you could get really crafty and do a massive makeover, but it'd be a lot of moving parts to get the team that you want on the fly, given all the money you've committed.
That's the thing, because you're doing this on the fly. You don't have a whole lot of time, so it's really tricky. But I'll tell you one thing, though. I think when you look at between the two players, you have to also consider that, let's say, player X or all-star coming in that you're trying to trade for, you have to wonder who he would want to play for. And I think if I had to pick, I think a lot of those guys would lean towards playing for someone like Embiid, whether we're talking about how dominant he is, his attitude in the sense of, how gritty he is, and he can get in people's faces. And he can help. He'll score down the stretch. He can put up 20-plus points on you. Whereas someone like Simmons, he's going to get you the ball, and he'll make sure that he'll set you up nicely. But I think nowadays, with everyone having a big three or at least a big two, the number one wants a number two. They want a guy that they can also lean on as well in those crunch time moments.
You need guys to set up Embiid. Simmons is going to be a guy who sets up the offense, and I hate going to bat for him so much because the shooting thing is a big problem. And it's been a major factor in the team's disappointment this year. So he's not out of the blame picture at all here. I just think he's just so much more built to be the centerpiece of the team right now. Embiid, maybe at a different time. I mean, at the end of the day, he still is a post-up player who needs to be set up, who needs to have the lane cleared, all that kind of stuff to make an impact. And you see the limitations of that tonight. And I'm not putting the series on him because the crap around him is terrible. I mean,
that's
he just
the thing.
Does not have the team.
But you know what? I'm gonna call BS on that because this has been bugging me. This Joel Embiid pity party. Okay, this is a team that was thought to be 1-1A.
Not from me.
Okay, but universally, okay?
Yeah.
From 1-1A with Milwaukee, neck and neck with this super team, super talented. Could challenge the Bucks and challenge for a title, and they sucked all year with Simmons and without. And granted, there were injuries on and off to both guys. And yes, you take one key guy out, but we're talking about the Celtics are a team that's made it to the Eastern Conference Finals with a 12-year-old Jason Tatum, and
he wasn't that far removed.
and 12 years old, Jason Tatum, and no Kyrie and no Hayward, and we're gonna sit here and Embiid, he said there's nobody around him. They got that $130 million payroll. These are a bunch of professionals. These are underachievers. I don't feel bad for them at all in this case, okay?
No, it's reality. And on the other end, you see what the Celtics are doing without Hayward, with bench guys, with rookies. They're making it happen.
If anybody went out, you wouldn't get a performance like this. There's not a single member of the Celtics that they were missing right now. We'd be sitting here and you'd have this crap of performance.
Maybe Tatum, yeah.
You've seen it again. We're talking over the course of 3 and 4 years. This is a team that had a better record without its best player over the past couple of years. So I mean,
and that's the coaching difference. I mean, Brown's not to blame for everything here, but he has done a bad job in this series. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. It's
definitely
no doubt about it. So
I see him for his job, man. Poor guy.
Should we move on to Toronto a little bit, or do we give Philly a little more time?
We got a lot. we got more talk to do. I mean, look, I don't think
The body's still warm, Bobby. Gee.
Not only that, I think people enjoy crapping on Philly, so let's savor it. Like
Yeah, imagine if it was the other way around.
Savor the flavor. Like this is
Well, let me do this. Think of the players they've let go over the years. Markelle Fultz, shining in Orlando. Just this playoff, you just look around the playoffs right now. Turn on your TV from 1 to 9. You see McConnell thriving with Indiana. You see Timothy Luau thriving with Brooklyn. This has to drive Sixers fans mad. The amount of guys that they've let go. Jimmy Butler has started something special in Miami. JJ Redick down early in the bubble, who's drilling shots from half court. I mean, they have had so many good players over the years that underachieve there, and this goes in your underachieving point, John. It's a collective environment there that they've built that bodes poorly toward good players succeeding in that environment. And Fultz is chief among them. What he's done in Orlando has been incredible this year, and he couldn't even take the court half the time in Philly.
Yep.
That's true.
It's I'm looking at some of the post-game comments right now. Joel Embiid saying he doesn't want to be swept. He doesn't want that on his resume.
Oh man.
Kemba Walker giving a lot of props to Marcus Smart, said that man can guard anything. Kemba also saying that he's never been up 3-0 in his life, and that's pretty cool. Which it's amazing. And again, we talked a little bit about Kemba and the type of game he had tonight, which is great. But again, even the attitude, he's
like a little kid, man. He's like, I'm just having fun out there.
It is amazing because after, you have a guy who acts the way he acts all year long, who's used to being a star, and he's like, no, you shoot, you score, I'm fine. And you're like, okay, is he putting on an act? At what point is this going to end and all happy fun time is going to be like, okay, just give me my damn shots. You remember Ray Allen after, I remember in the beginning days of the Big Three, they were all doing press conferences together. Allen, Pierce, Garnett, they'd all go to the table at the same time. And about 2 weeks into the regular season, Allen wasn't at the table anymore.
We're not doing this all year.
It was KG and Pierce, and he's like, F that, I want to be me, and you enter this and you're Kemba, and you wondered at what point he might be like, okay, this is cool and I've been nice for a while, but it's been 2 months. Can I get my 20 shots now? And he never did it. Right. Yeah. But he's never done it, and it's amazing. Yeah. And then after last game, it's all, and it's not, somebody pointed this out, but you see it. His post game, when they lose and he doesn't play well, he takes it on himself. When they win, no matter what he did in the game, he gives all props to his teammates, and he's done it all year long. Okay, and tonight he was the best offensive player, and he's sitting and talking about Marcus Smart, and it's amazing. And you can't talk about him. Every single thing you say about him, and anything any of the announcers say, is a subtweet of Kyrie Irving. It's basically continually. He is literally, it's like he was put on this planet to be the thing that Kyrie Irving isn't, and then to come to Boston to make people feel better about the whole Kyrie Irving experiment. It's amazing that it's gone this way with him.
Yeah, he's the complete opposite. He's playing on a team with guys that can help him out. So he's amazed at him. He's on the sideline amazed half the time, and he can't believe how young these guys are. And I think it's very significant because of who he is as a player. It speaks to what he means to the team as a leader. And he's a veteran, a seasoned vet, so he's been there. He's been around. I think there's just so much weight that goes with that. With that being said, if he was someone who only had 3 or 4 years under his belt, I think he'd be a little different. But again, like you said, man, all those years and playing in Charlotte, he's up 3-0 in a playoff series. He's loving every moment of this.
Yeah. I go back to that play yesterday where he goes down, battered by Embiid, probably a block. He could have complained like Tatum, all that stuff. And he shoots back out of nowhere. It was a Marcus Smart-esque play and just completely unwields the ball from Embiid, sends it flying out the other direction to Brown for that 360 dunk. That's probably the play of the season for the Celtics, and he's right in the middle of it. He's always blowing up plays like that on the defensive end. And, you said everything you can about the off-the-court impact there, John. We were laughing a little bit. I remember when we were standing there probably June of last year, so we're talking 14 months ago at the draft night. And they didn't have the best draft in the world, but what we heard was it was a good vibe type situation. They were trying to get good guys in there, good vibe in the locker room. And, it's the skill that has made this happen. It's the talent of this team that has gotten them to this point. But I don't think that good chemistry has hurt at all.
No, you're right.
And it certainly helped.
And Bobby, we were there. Both of us were there for the rookie rollout that they did at the Arback Center. Mm-hmm. And it was all all, and again, it was all good vibes, and everything leading up to that was good vibes, and everything on the draft night was good vibes, and we drafted good kids. I mean, just to think how poisonous it must have been that they might have theoretically passed up talent for character because they just didn't want anything to remotely resemble what they had.
Right, and that carried over into the draft. You know, you guys had a video. I wasn't in on that segment, but it was I was like screaming at the screen, being like, "Listen, Grant Williams. A lot of him being drafted had to do with the fact that he's a great locker room guy. His personality, you know, the ravings was through the roof. You know, the recommendations for Grant Williams were through the roof, and because of what happened last season, I think when you weighed out the options, Grant Williams was the one.
Everything smart. Funny, like it just serious, but also like just good character. Could have gone to Harvard. Like everything about Grant was like, yeah, we love this guy. But everything,
and he played well here. I thought he had.
And tonight again, tonight Grant was awesome. He had a great game. He really did.
And who did he shack up with during in quarantine? You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of guy Kemba Walker is. It's incredible.
That's amazing, actually. We didn't talk about that a ton, but it's great. But no, Bobby, you're right. Bobby, you're right. On the court tonight, I thought Grant, they needed that too. They needed somebody to do something, and I thought he made the most of his minutes for sure.
His 3-pointer looked good. He's 3 for 3 in the playoffs outside.
He doesn't miss.
He always rotates well defensively, and they found a way to play him at the 4 in the series. We said it before. He didn't play a ton at the end of the seeding games. In fact, he played terrible when he was out there, and we thought he shot to the bottom of the rotation because that's where Stevens was playing him. And we had no clue what Stevens was going to do looking back on it with the bench. He's gone.
I said he might start him when Hayward went down.
Yeah,
you just suggested that. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah,
would have made sense. And I thought about it a little bit, but Smart's done well. He rotates in well off the bench for the 2 big lineups. Next series, that probably goes out the window. But for this one, he made the most of it. He fit. And that's what they're going to do with the bench. It's all going to be a fit type situation. So we'll see what happens with Robert Williams, who's been a no-show in this series that we thought was going to be the savior coming off the bench. And, he can't even get a few minutes tonight at this point. So
don't worry. You'll see him against the Raptors. You'll see him running that floor.
That's a good thing to discuss there because he doesn't do anything in the series. In fact, in Game 2, he was bad. He had all his fouls and jumping at the shots and all the stuff we complain about with him. Can he just come out cold after sitting for a whole series and impact that Toronto series, which is going to be high intensity? I wonder.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the biggest concern for me is just when it comes to his fouling on defense. It just drives me insane because I think he can be such a great shot blocker, but he just goes for everything. And he's gotten a lot better with his moving his feet. That used to drive me crazy before. He was always like a step or two too late. And throughout those 8 seeding games, or the ones where he shined the most, you saw him shine specifically in that area. And actually, Scalabrine brought it up one time during one of those games. And he saw
we have to talk about it then?
He recognized the difference. Yeah, you know how he is. You brought that
up. Any final thoughts here before we move on? I don't mind a teeny taste of Toronto because it's certainly happening. We talked about rotations. Bobby, what do you think in terms of major differences here going on, how the series is played and how the games are played in terms of, I think the Celtics are going to approach it roughly the same way in terms of their rotations, but who do we see more of? Who might we see less of? What do you think?
It's going to be Romeo. We get back to him. I hate playing this game because we name a guy and then he's out of the fold, and it just makes all of us look stupid.
Burley Sullivan likes Ledford, and that's all I need.
Yeah. So, he looks like the guy there because Ojale, he had a good seeding stretch, and then into the playoffs, he's getting blown by. He's fouling poorly. Stevens was upset with him after Game 2. He got time early in that game and then got pulled and didn't play the rest of the night. So maybe that series bowl is better for him, but I would imagine it's going to be more of a Langford series than a Grant Williams series. I'm curious about Robert. I tend to agree with Joe Sway that he could impact that series given the, Toronto's going to play up more on the pick and roll, and that's a chance where he could dive to the basket. But after not playing here and kind of getting caught up in the speed of the playoff intensity, I'm a little concerned about him going into that Toronto series, but he's definitely an option as well.
Yeah. A lot of people here, thinking the Raptors, it's again, we think that the tough matchup, but the Celtics have played them well this year. Again, the no Gordon Hayward really is a game changer. I think, you hate to make the excuses, but it is the reality. I think the Celtics with Gordon Hayward they match up well. I think they can, without their, I'm not going to say they have to play perfect games, but they don't have a lot of margin for error against a team like Toronto. Here with Philly,
Right.
Philly's a hot mess. Like you could play a crap game like the Celtics did.
Philly's bench stinks too.
And Philly's bench stinks.
Toronto's got a great bench. Chris
Yeah.
Boucher, OG rotating in. They're very deep.
That's why Toronto and Miami, I know, kind of scare you a tad because of the bench, there where, you're a little bit worried about that. And it's just a tougher matchup. You gotta bring it for 48 minutes. No question about it. Toronto
It's going to be a grind of a series. It really is. That one's probably going to go the distance.
Yeah. Someone just asked if they beat him without Gordon. Yeah. I think that is a grind of a series. Absolutely. And you're right. It could start early. You'd love to push the second round a little bit. Any minute or two that can get Gordon a couple of extra days. But again,
the high intensity rehab still underway. It's going to stink not having him for the entirety of that series, probably, because that's where you have 3 wings on the Toronto side, 3 wings on the Boston side, and they're going to clash and explode. And all of a sudden, the Celtics are using one of their bench guys rather than an all-star, which is what gave them the edge in that bubble game.
It's exactly right. Yeah, it's true. I mean, and the Raptors, again, they had a clunky game 1, but they're doing what they're supposed to do. Siakam has not been great, as this commenter says, in the bubble.
That's true.
That's true, yeah.
He's been down. He had a good game today. He 26 points, 11 to 23 field goals. So, again, Lowry's always tough in. Fleet, again, Celtics played him really, really well. Didn't get beat up as much as you thought with their size. They really hung in there. So it's again.
So I've watched some of that Toronto-Brooklyn series, and this is going to be tough for Stevens too, because Toronto didn't put a lot on film in the bubble stretch. I don't think they put a ton on film here. And these last 2 games are truly washes against a team with no Joe Harris. So there's not. I've listened to Nick Nurse too. They're definitely hiding some stuff over there on the Toronto side.
I think so too. I don't think they've given you anything because again they've been here and locked into the 2 seed in a friggin' cakewalk series against half of a bad team in Brooklyn.
Yeah. And that's probably a reason the Celtics beat them as bad as they did there. They probably held things back a little bit in that game in terms of their playbook. Nick Nurse is a great coach. This is the series we've been waiting for years. That is going to be an incredibly hard series to win as they're constituted.
Yep.
Yeah, I still have them as a favorite.
Yep.
Still.
All right.
I have to think about it. I'll pull it out for game 4.
All right. Well, we got more. When do we got game 4? Are they even going to play it?
Sunday at 1 o'clock.
We are going to do it 1 o'clock. So we'll be back here then. Hopefully with our hard hats on, with our Jimmy Toscano hard hats, signifying
he's going to rock it for sure.
Signifying sweep. But again, we'll see what Philly has left here. We talk. I mean,
Berkman, look at him. Or Birkin. That's a funny comment.
If
only we had Potapenko instead of Cantor.
Oh, Vitali. In fairness, we did think Philly was going to fold and put in a crap effort for Game 3. They tried hard tonight. They just sucked.
But
you'll
see.
But they tried. So you're wondering again that effort down 3-0 and kind of like a let's get me out of this bubble sort of situation. I don't see a lot of 3-0 teams putting in really much of a fight
bubble?
here.
No, forget it. They're
in the bubble, Sunday at 1, you could be home on your couch by 8 o'clock. Like
why stay an extra 2 days just for the same fate?
Yeah, I'm all set. I'm going home.
You might see. We saw Joe Harris. I don't want to laugh at that because that was a family matter with him. But maybe someone on Philly. Maybe someone on Philly leaves on Saturday night and gets out of here a day early. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well,
imagine it's Embiid.
Yeah. I mean, he's here. I think
I got a bad knee. Something happened.
He's fine. He's doing what he can, but he's just we've talked about him a ton. He just doesn't look like a guy who's just got. He just doesn't have enough juice for 48 minutes.
It's the way he plays, too. Like, you need to set him up. You need to do these long, extensive post sets. And the way Boston speeds up the game, it's just not conducive to the way Philly wants to play.
It doesn't work.
After those trips to the free throw line towards the end of the fourth quarter, I kind of got the sense, I'm like, wait a minute, are we going to go back to like 1998 here? Is the big man going to win the game for these guys for like a second?
He tried. He did everything he needed to in that stretch. And I think he's had a good series, besides the gas outs that he's had, as you mentioned, John.
But he's
I don't know. I'm not going to feel too bad for him either. Like,
No pity parties. But we'll wrap it up. We've got Game 4 Sunday at 1. Hopefully this is wrapped up by then, and then we're on to Toronto. But again, we've had fun, And I almost normally you'd think you'd be crapping on Philly a little more. I almost feel a little bad for them right now, but
7-1 now, going back to that 18 series, unbelievable.
I almost feel a little bad. Not that bad. But for Bobby Manning, from Celtics blog and CLNS Media, Joe Sway, heavy D over there, heavy.com. He's your Celtics writer for Heavy, Celtics beat writer, heavy.com. John Zanis, all of us here for CLNS Media. We will see you guys Sunday after the game.